being live streamed. We're live. Welcome everyone to our book study group for our Monday, the 30th of May. We got 24 hours left in this glorious month, the month in which I was born. So there you go.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a happy birthday a week ago. My daughter made me a cake. But I'm excited. I'm excited that we're going to be concluding The Traveler's Gift tonight. Boy, we knocked this one out in 3 weeks. Novels are easier to read, I think, because you get, kind of into I'll speak for myself. I get into the story of it. And I think many, if not all of you, this was your first time through this book, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Good. So I did reach out to Andy's office. I have not heard back. Imagine that. I was going to ask him, would you like to come visit with, me and 10 of my closest friends? It just didn't work out. So, so no cameo. Unless he shows up in the last possible second. No, haven't heard back still. All right. Anyway, but as you went through this book, you probably got engaged in the story of this guy, David Ponder, and of course, these last few chapters, I think really the author really built up to a very nice crescendo, I think. Before we get into it, though, I'll announce, if I haven't told you already, or if you haven't heard, our next book will be You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor. And I went on to Amazon to see, Kindle, because I like to post the link so everybody can go get the Kindle or whatever you want to get. And turns out it's not even on Kindle. And if you want a hard copy, there's people price gouging. They'll take $150 for it. Anyway, I found a link on Proctor Gallagher, so bobproctor.com, right? You go there. I linked everybody to it in the members site if you're a member here with the mastermind. And also for our free, visitors who come and just experience the book study group, I emailed everybody that link today. So you just click on the book cover, they'll bring you to the page. You just put your name and email, and they will send you not only the PDF, but also the audio book on the house.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there you go. So don't spend $150 on a paperback. Anyway, you know what? Hold on just 1 second. Here's the book, and I was just going to celebrate with you guys a little bit. Bob told me to keep going.
Hey.
So, John, keep going. All right, well, I'll do that then. I'll keep going, which was one of the precepts or the decisions in here, the final decision in here. So this week we're covering these last 4 chapters. The final chapter is just a couple pages, but decision number 6 and 7. So number 6, let's start with that, right? We had this tall, lanky guy who was giving a speech in some grassy field that looked kind of familiar. Turns out it was Gettysburg, and here's Abe Lincoln, right? So forgiveness. Wow. Now, I don't know what you guys thought of this. I know Missy and Bob, you probably know more about Abe Lincoln than Andy Andrews does. But in my opinion, and just having studied what I have studied, this guy had not only gone through tremendous adversity to get to the point where he actually got to lead a nation through one of the hardest times in the history of this country. But also did it in such a way that I don't know that anybody else could. So when I think of a character like Lincoln, and again, I wasn't there, not that I recall anyway, but when I think of a character like that, I think of, this person's whole life was like, could anybody else have filled his shoes at that time in history? Could anybody else have done what he did? And yet the decision that he gave to Ponder in this book is forgiveness. How did he write it? Crap. Am I going the right way? Chapter, the tobacco pouch. Here we are. I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. So after all of the uh, trials and tribulations and things where I've maybe you guys have heard this saying too, in life you either get better or you get bitter. And I think if anyone had license to be bitter, it's probably this Abe Lincoln guy. And yet I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. Profound to me. And I think, based on the story, profound to David Ponder, because, here was a guy who clearly wasn't forgiving himself. And how many times have we seen ourselves, and again, I'll speak for myself, where I belabor and bemoan my blunders of yesterday, my acts of commission and omission. I did and I shouldn't have. I should have, but I didn't. Right. And all the regret stuff. Right. And I'm thinking, man, here's a guy. And while this, the way the story was depicted, and I'm guessing this is historically accurate, but while he was showing up in Gettysburg to give the address and everything, he's got, he just lost one child, another one was on their deathbed. Like, holy crap. So I can walk around, hanging on to whatever story that allows me to continue to suffer because of, what I did or didn't do yesterday. And, right, that's just self-forgiveness. But then also the resentments, the grudges, things like that, which I think for the most part, I've released. Although in modern times, and I don't know how many of you experience this, if you confront what's going on in the modern world, and especially on a day like today, and I'm talking to, is it all Americans here? We're all Americans here tonight. Okay. Here we are, Memorial Day. People gave their ultimate sacrifice for what? So some political elite can just get more power or something? Was that the result of that? I think not. Right. So now there you go. Can I go forgive that? What's going on in Washington right now? Ooh. So I don't know, guys. What do you think? The sixth decision for success. I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit.
That's a good question. I mean, if I had to pinpoint, the entire purpose of forgiveness, it's not to say that what the perpetrator did was okay, but what it's saying is that I'm not going to be bitter and ruin my life over their decision. So even what's happening, globally, or what's going on in Washington, D.C., their decisions are not okay, but I'm releasing the bitterness that I would have towards that, towards anybody involved. I mean, the cabal, whoever you want to go into detail, we could, but it's to release that and say, whatever their decisions are that are hurting people, I'm not going to live my life in the negativity of it, but rather I'm going to take action, which was one of our other decisions, and do something about it. And that fight just makes it feel a little bit better, but it's just not letting it, destroy my life and bring me down and hold me down. It's not going to keep me in chains. I'm not going to stay in prison over somebody else's decision. But it does not validate their choice.
There you go. So you're not consumed by, because I mean, these people don't even know who you are, right? They're just doing their power grab thing or domination and whatever. Who the hell's Mickey Jeans, right? So when we take stuff personally, who gets to suffer, right? Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean you go into agreement and that you're not willing to fight, right? And I know, Mickey, you as well, right? You've been through, and is there anyone who hasn't been through crap in their life? Anyone? No. Okay, right. So we all have license to be bitter, I suppose, if you want to do that. And perhaps it's an Italian thing. I don't know. Maybe Missy, you can help me. But like, no, right? You go to the wall with this stuff and pain for all eternity and the gnashing of teeth and all the drama, right? Drama. We're dramatic. I'm dramatic. So this one was a big one for me. Who else? Lindsay likes that. The gnashing of teeth. What exactly does that mean, by the way? I gotta look that up. Gnashing.
Yes. May I say something very strange that's going
Please.
on with this book?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even finish it, but Bob told me the last couple of chapters. But before we started the book, I've been working on this blog for a year about this condition that I experienced, reaching out to people. At first, it was about the condition. Now it's about overcoming it. But I decided a few weeks ago, I'm going to make myself available for speeches. I am? Okay, yeah, I am. And then Bob told me the end of the book, and I'm like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
And then the forgiveness thing, I just happened to, a YouTube thing came up yesterday with Louise Hay.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, go to your bathroom mirror. First, she said, look at your eyes and say, I love you. She said, a lot of people can't do that.
Mm.
But because of the growth I've had in the last year, I bet I wouldn't have been able to do it last year. But because of the growth, because of meeting you and so on, that was easy. And then she said, now go in and say, I forgive you to yourself. That brought me to such tears. And then when he's telling me about this chapter, I'm like, what? This synchronicity is very strange. It's like coming at, so it's to me, that's meant to be. These messages are for all time, and they're especially for me right now. And I'm hitting on them right at the very moment that we're reading this book. I mean, it's just amazing. I don't want to babble, but it was, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say these things, it's very powerful. And you got to forgive yourself before you can forgive anybody else, truly.
It's just the reverse side of the coin. When asked, what is the greatest commandment of the law? Jesus said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, many people focus on just the first clause of the second great commandment. And the great error of modern times is inverting, in my mind. Now, I may be stepping on the religious sensibilities of anyone, but we have flipped it over. It's been inverted. They're still there, but we have substituted the love of neighbor for the love of God. Well, St. James says, if you say you love God but despise your neighbor, you're a liar. Love of neighbor is merely a yardstick, a barometer, a measuring of your love of God. Charity, which is truly what we're talking about, not so much love, but charity is like a waterfall. It flows downward. It must start with God, who is charity itself. And then because of the love that you have for your creator and redeemer, you then love your neighbor because you see in your neighbor the very impress of the divine. You see the image and likeness of God. But coming back to forgiveness and forgiving oneself, you must love yourself as a creature made in the image and likeness of God and forgiven by God before you can even love and forgive your neighbor. All right, the old aphorism that charity starts at home is right here. It starts with yourself. You must be charitable and forgive yourself before you can actually proceed to say, I can forgive my neighbor.
So charity with oneself.
We overlook that.
Yes.
If you can't say it in the mirror, there's something wrong.
If you do not, because the unfortunate gloss we put on humility is that you have to despise yourself. You have to think of yourself as the worst of mankind. And that's not true. It's not true. You're worth something. You're worth something for those who are Christians and who believe in the redemptive act. Right? God went to a lot of trouble to get your soul back from hell. Are you going to despise that act by despising yourself and saying, no, I reject it? Of course not. All right. That is not humility. That is timelessness.
I get the perspective. I get it. Right. So how egotistical of me to not forgive myself when, greater power, omniscience, and all that has already done so. So are my standards higher? Is that what you're saying? Are your standards higher than God's?
Yes, that's exactly what you're saying. I am the supreme judge, and that is the sin of pride, which is numbered as the first of the 7 capital sins, and it is the sin of our first parents. Eve was deceived by the serpent when she was told, "You will not die. You will be like God. You will know good and evil." And those, to get political, who are overlords, are doing exactly that. They are playing God with all of us.
Great perspectives. Thank you so much, Bob. Missy, if you haven't read these final chapters, just for the story value and the visuals, I would suggest doing so. There's one part in here where Lincoln comes in, he smiles. Let's see. You mentioned 2 reasons that you came here. What was the second? Lincoln smiled. "Why, to meet you, of course." David's eyes widened. "You're certainly more important than any remarks I might share with those in attendance today." That's interesting, right? The cemetery is about the past. You are about the future. David looked away. "I appreciate your confidence," he said, "but I'm not sure it's justified. At the moment, I'm just hoping there is a future. I'm actually going through the worst time in my life right now." To which Lincoln says, "Congratulations are in order then. Better days are most assuredly ahead." The president then raised his water glass and exclaimed, "To us, 2 men experiencing the worst life has to offer."
I will, believe me. I love this book. I love it.
Yeah. Interesting.
On a lighter note,
when
he talked about his remarks being not that important, it reminded me of the Bob Newhart skit, Abe Lincoln versus Madison Avenue. And Lincoln's press agent is Bob Newhart, and he's talking to Lincoln over the phone about the Gettysburg Address. And Lincoln is coming to grips with the clause, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here." And he said, and Bob Newhart said, "No, this is a great line. We test marketed in Harrisburg. Everybody loved it." And it's the old humility bit, Abe. What do you got wrong with that? And he says, and of course, you're hearing the one side of the conversation. "They'll remember." Okay. Yeah, they'll remember, but it's the humility bit. People love it.
Bob Newhart. That's great.
Stop it.
Stop it. All right. Who else had some thoughts on this visit with Lincoln and the forgiving heart?
Just finally, Lincoln, the Gettysburg Address is a great speech, but it's not deemed to be Lincoln's greatest speech. And his greatest speech was the speech at his second inaugural, which is very brief. It's even briefer than the Gettysburg Address. But it has that immortal line, "With malice towards none, with charity to all, let us together bind up the nation's wounds."
Tell them what the first act he did after the war was finished.
Well, on the night of Appomattox, crowds and bands gathered on the White House lawn and wanted Lincoln to appear. And so he appeared, and he requested the bands that they play Dixie.
To bring the Union back together. Forgiveness.
Right.
Still part, and they made all the rebel soldiers part of, they're buried in Arlington. Well, they desecrated their graves recently.
Well, they were at Gettysburg too. Obviously, it was soldiers from both sides that were interred at Gettysburg.
So anyway, it's just, so he was a man of his word on that.
Beautiful stuff. Well, there's one more piece that I wanted to just read out of this chapter. Right here. "I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. I will forgive those who criticize me unjustly. Knowing that slavery in any form is wrong, I also know that the person who lives a life according to the opinion of others is a slave. I am not a slave. I have chosen my counsel. I know the difference between right and wrong. I know what is best for the future of my family, and neither misguided opinion nor unjust criticism will alter my course. So the other side of this is that when we're free of that trap, that slavery, we also have we're less inhibited, right, to reach and to do what we already know is right. Anyway, this was a big chapter for me, but not as big as the next one. Any other thoughts? And Stuart's not here, so we're not getting the complete dissertation, but where is Stuart? I don't know. Okay, well, let's move on then to chapter 9. So here we are in this room or a warehouse or a realm or something with apparently no lights and no end in sight, and it's all this stuff, just every kind of stuff you can possibly imagine. And of course, if you've read the chapter, you know that that this, very, very, very tall, kind of like glowing white, but it's kind of like light. Is it white or is it light? And he's got the blonde hair and the piercing blue eyes, and he happens to have some wings. And holy crap, it's Gabriel. And he's like, oh, you're an angel. He's like, well, actually an archangel. There's a difference. Okay, thank you. And but throughout this chapter, where David then wakes up to the idea that this is the place that never was, right? So here's all this stuff, including the pictures of the kids that he never had. Right. So this is all the stuff that never came to be because of less courageous people who did not persist, people who gave up. One of the things I loved about this chapter was how, and I don't know if you guys experienced it, as you read the story, but how Gabriel was unaffected, not cold, but in a way impassive and objective. So David, in his suffering, at one point he's collapsed on the floor and he's miserable and whatever, and Gabriel just stands there waiting for him to be done with his dramatization, right? But gives him answers very matter-of-factly. Where's the one where he's this is the downside of not having not doing it on Kindles. I don't have right, here we are. So here's the picture of the kids that he never had. David, all right, lowering the picture slowly, he gripped the side of the large basket with his other hand to steady himself. Breathing heavily, he said, "But you already knew that, didn't you?" "Yes," Gabriel answered. "Why is this being done to me?" Gabriel's eyes narrowed. "Explain yourself more clearly, please. Why am I seeing this now?" "Special dispensation is allowed for a traveler to gain greater wisdom and understanding." "I don't understand." "Obviously." Right? I mean, these are the kind of responses. "I don't understand." To which, a sympathetic person might, want to run to their aid or whatever. Gabriel's response was "obviously." So observing the ignorance, and in this case, the lack of faith, and not not offering sympathy for it, but offering a decision instead. So Gabriel talks about faith in this chapter and how it trumps reason. Reason has its uses, but they're limited. Okay, reason's good. Faith is where we can experience those miracles. And what did Earl Nightingale say? Not in this book, okay, but I'm thinking to Earl Nightingale's summation of Think and Grow Rich, where he talked about persistence, which is, of course, the decision that's offered in this chapter by the character Gabriel. But what Earl Nightingale said was that persistence is just another word for faith. If you didn't have faith, you wouldn't persist. So now I don't think the two words are synonymous, although I'm thinking to what Earl Nightingale said and to what was presented here in this chapter, where Gabriel is requesting of David that he develops some faith. And then the decision that he hands him is, I will persist without exception. Now, in lectures where I've heard Andy Andrews speak, he puts emphasis on the without exception part. Because he said so many people, yeah, I'm persistent until I'm not. So to persist without exception, now we're approaching something we could consider more absolute. So there is no point. In fact, even it said here, even in exhaustion, I persist. Now, I guess it comes down to, and this is what I've observed with people like in the business setting, it comes down to, well, how bad do you want it? Because as easy as it is to do the right thing, it's even easier to just not do it, right? So if we're going to get uncomfortable to the point where we don't have an off switch, right, where we actually develop the habits that are going to bear fruit, we're going to get so consistent that our identity becomes that person who just doesn't have that off switch, that we always move forward. That requires a bit of vision, which we talked about in general session this morning, right? So for me to operate at the correct order of magnitude, for me to put in not only good judgment, but worthy effort, right, to the correct degree, right, which may be way more or different than what I had originally estimated at the outset. Well, then I damn well better have a vision, going back to Solomon, right, in the book, where he talked about seeking wisdom. Well, Solomon also said, not in this book, but in real life, where there is no vision, the people perish. So that's something that I've been kind of parked on for, as a result of reading this, is all right, so to what end am I persisting without exception? Like, for what, right? I damn well better have an answer. And sometimes I don't, right? Which that's really a difficult thing, is to confront, well, I'm not even really sure where I'm going with all this. So I'm sure I'm not the only person who's experienced stuff like that, but to persist without exception is the precept or the decision that's offered here. What did you guys get out of this, besides the story value, which I thought was spectacular, just kind of visualizing, Gabriel and all this? Who's got some thoughts?
Wouldn't he be meaning persist in that which is good, and persist in a worthy goal and a worthy ideal, not just persist in everything that, persist in, eating junk. Well, that's not good. Persist in an idea that's failing. He persisted in that business to his own family's detriment, because he thought it was the right thing to do. He was persisting without a good cause. So to me, it means, obviously, if it's coming from an archangel, it means persist in what is good. So you have to use your right reason, and make sure you have to have discernment, and make sure you're persisting in the right thing. Otherwise, you're just being stubborn. Mm-hmm. I'm very guilty of, have been guilty of. I'm trying to change that. That's right, Mickey. He needs a snack.
Right.
But
you're saying no, like the previous chapter was forgive, let go, basically. And here is never let go. So discernment, right?
Without wisdom, the people also perish. Mm-hmm. So Solomon, you must develop wisdom in order to pursue a worthy ideal. Otherwise, you're just pursuing. I said to Bob this morning or yesterday, I said, in the be, do, have equation, I have been mostly doing, and I've been not forgetting to be. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of activity that is exhausting me. There is a worthy ideal in back of it, but I've skipped that part. So it doesn't work. I wouldn't say I've skipped it. I would say that I
sublimated it.
Well, because I thought action was, I need to take action. because I was sick for so long. Like, I got to act. And no, guess what? That was a mistake. So I persisted in a wrong thing by continuing to do. What did I achieve?
Okay.
As you said a while ago, if you with the rabbits, he fondles two
pursues two rabbits, captures none.
Yes, I'm pursuing, but I don't have my ducks in a row. Okay. So it's be, do, have. If you're just doing, you can't take. That's not a shortcut. That's a sure path to failure. So I am really diligently now making a quantum leap in my mind and mindset and life and recalibrating, and I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the do, I'm very capable of doing, and the have will come. I don't think about that at all. That's just a consequence, a result. But yes, persist in what is good and right. Lindsay's persisting toward, we know director 9. She's just about around the corner. So, but she already has the B. She has the B, and the doing comes naturally to her. She's a hard worker, but she's got it in the right order. That's how we know that thing is. She's practically got it in her hand already. She already does in the bit of a future, but she's there.
Right.
So well, we just
the next chapter is the next chapter reveals the future for our traveler. But what's coming up for me as you're saying that is to persist with virtue and with discernment. I have, in my own life experience, I've seen myself loyal to a fault, barking up the wrong tree until the bitter end, that sort of a thing, right? Because I did not have wisdom. So I see exactly what you're saying, Missy, is that we can persist to our own demise. And that doesn't sound like a very happy way to live. What was that Anne Frank said? Today I will choose to be happy, right? So as I go through these decisions, some of them I see myself arguing with myself on these things. Well, hold on a second here. Does it have to be drudgery? Is that what persistence means? Is that your life is miserable or something? And I think a lot of people, and I could say for me, no, it's not. Okay. It's almost therapeutic, in fact. Anybody ever gotten lost in their work, right? Where you're just so intent on it. And so now all the other ankle biting problems, you forget about them because you're focused, you're on purpose, right? And I think when we're on purpose, remember, like Wallace Wattles, Science of Getting Rich, purpose and faith, right? So if we imbue our activities, each of them, the doing this that you're talking about, Missy, if we do that with purpose and faith and in a deep sense of gratitude, well, I mean, who needs an off switch? I do this for fun, right? And it's highly productive and purposeful and all that. I don't think the alternative to persisting without exception is live life like a party, right? I don't think it's you either get to be purposeful and persistent or your life's a party. I don't think the two are antithetical, is I guess what I'm trying to say, right? There's joy in work. It's freaking awesome, right? In fact, I can tell you some of the most miserable people are purposeless people. What are you doing? Where are you going? I don't know. Wow. Back to the idea of vision. Is it just me and Missy who got our jollies reading this? Anybody else? Yes.
I love this chapter. It was very rich with growth and maturity. It was as I was reading through and noticing that there was a cure to cancer that almost happened, and there was tonsils that almost happened, these cures that almost happened, but somebody stopped just short of accomplishing those goals. That was very convicting for me. I thought, it's discouraging. I think, when you're starting something new, for those who don't know, I just left a career in medicine for over 30 years. So being an entrepreneur and doing something in a business realm is completely different. So it can be, very overwhelming. There are days when, I have woken up and I thought, I don't even know where to begin. And just that there's drudgery and there's fear and just like frustration, like to the depths of my soul. Like, how am I going to make this happen? I hear everyone saying how they make it happen. And yet here I am trying to drink from a water hose and make everything happen myself. So, coming to a place where with discernment, like what Missy is talking about, and you too, John, it's trying to compartmentalize the things that are important in my life, in my work, in my family. What is important, and focus right there. So a living example of that would be right now, I'm putting a website up. So initially, last week, I would think, how are these other people making these websites without, having to pay someone an exorbitant amount of money to do so? And how am I, someone who's not tech oriented, going to do this? And, but trying to find that joy in what I'm doing and streamlining that has been key. Stepping back, just taking that first step and saying, okay, what question do I have right now? How am I going to find the answer to that right now? And then the next thing you know, I am neck deep, having a great time going, wow, I can't believe what I'm learning. I can't believe what I'm doing. I cannot believe that I'm about to have a live website that I built all by myself. Like, it's just the craziest thing that we don't give ourselves credit because we're not committed to carrying it out to the very end. I think automatically we worry, thinking about what other people are going to think, or we worry about, how would you say that, when we were just talking about, having the perception of other men being more important than our perceptions of ourselves, or the perception that God has of us, not having to bend to, oh, did you do this yet? Or, oh, it's the end of the month. And oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And there's this like rising anxiety that can happen if we're not careful to compartmentalize what we need to do. We need to prioritize. And it takes a lot of courage to tune out all of the voices, to tune out the noise, and to, I will say this for myself, pray, God, show me what you want me to do today and let me accomplish that. That's my faith. Some people have, whatever capacity that you do that, to find that place where you need to start, commit to that and move forward. I don't think that, the cure to cancer, I'm sure, is probably out there already somewhere, but that's not my thing. But what is in front of me, I'm not going to just stop just short of it. I mean, this chapter was just so convicting to me in that way. It gave me so much strength and energy, a positive energy, and then also a self-confidence, like I have something to offer, and what I'm doing is a mission, and I'm not going to stop short of it. So it gives me that drive to just continue on and on and on and on.
Wow.
If that helps.
Thank you. Beautiful stuff. Wow, wow, wow. Hey guys, I don't know if you're hearing the thunder and lightning, but here's what I'm sitting in right now, just in case everything goes down, you'll know why. So there's
You're not used to that, are you?
Yeah. Hey, Lindsay.
Wow.
Yeah, you're not used to that. Sorry.
Right.
No, this chapter to me, it was like you could get lost when you went into that room, you could get lost in the hindsight's 2020 type thing. Like, oh gosh, what if yourself to death? But no, it's just everything is a decision. Make a decision and act. And I have to say, this is the first time that I've not been like chaotic crazy at the end of the month. I thought everything's going, it's fine. I have this calm about where it's fine. It's good. Mm-hmm. And I've not had that yet toward the end of the month. Unless I just knew flat out, okay, this has not been your month. but I've not been like calm. I made a decision. What was it? It is. I think it is a posture and just getting to do the be. Finally doing that.
Are you talking about not being like worried or frantic regarding like business production, statistics, and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Business, you know, yeah, just knowing like everything's you've been the person you're been available throughout the day. Just it's a nice calm feeling.
Yeah.
So
Well, so back to the thing we were talking about just before, which was that being purposeful and in persistent action does not equal, being frantic or miserable or worried
or lazy. You still do what you need to do and to the best of your ability and keep persisting on that. But there's a calmness in that. I think it is with the being part. It does take that. I don't know how to. I can't put it in.
I think you got it. It's that relaxed confidence and it's that purposefulness, which allows you to persist rather than the story and the worry and the suffering and everything else, which can take you off course.
Yes.
So, right. So it's never profited you to be frantic or worried, or does that ever profit you?
No.
So now we just got to remember that.
Remind me of that, y'all. You have to remind me of that. So yeah, it is. It's just sticking with it, and it's fun. It is fun. I thought this was fun, but it's just, yeah. So I could breathe today, and spend time with one of my children and my parents. So it was really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, Catherine.
Yeah, this one reminded me of the story about stopping 3 feet from gold. Oh. These were all the people that stopped. They didn't keep going. It just
kind
of made you wonder how many times in your life have you done that? Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot. Yeah.
I don't know because in my case, I've also seen myself hang on to the bitter end because I don't want to stop 3 feet from goal. So that's where what Missy was talking about with seeking wisdom and what Solomon was talking about in the previous chapter, right? So that's what we got to have. Otherwise, we're just, I could be barking up the wrong tree. And so I think we know, and Catherine, I think when you're on the right path, despite, the issues and problems and stuff like that. But in your heart, do you feel like you're on the right path, like with what you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, finally.
So that speaks volumes, right?
Yeah.
And then there's less deliberation and indecision. Mm-hmm. And then you can persist, right? Persist in what? In right action. So I think with Ponder in this book, and one of the ideas that I got from this chapter with Gabriel was that he was playing too small of a game, and like Missy was saying, perhaps he didn't persist in the right things anyway, or that the company was going down in the early chapters, but the whole thing comes together in these final 2 chapters here, where he finally sees, and this is if you guys are ready to jump into this final part of the book, he finally sees his future as like a guaranteed result. Like there it is, he's seeing it now, which in one sense we don't have that ability to enter like the dream world. Although if we do craft our vision, and if we do, get contemplative and get quiet and develop that faith, can we not also, have that same sort of vision and assuredness and expectation of it? Here he is in this final scene in the book where he's he's going through his city, Dallas, in the case of the setting of the book, Dallas, Texas. and there's the familiar buildings, but then there's some other ones that he doesn't even recognize, including this huge tower. And he ventures over to it after he gets through the stadium, right, which is named after him, and like it's his street, right, David Ponder Avenue or whatever. It's like what, right? And then he gets to see a much bigger game is afoot. And back to the idea of purpose, and what Bob was talking about earlier, and kind of putting things in perspective. Are we operating at the correct orders of magnitude for the purpose that we've been blessed with, or we've chosen for ourselves, or however that is? Are we fulfilling to the degree that we very much could, right? Are we fulfilling that vision for ourselves? And that was the thing in this final part of the book where Ponder he got the idea that what he's doing is of much bigger consequence, that he's having a much bigger effect. Of course, in the story of the book, he's going to deliver the 7 decisions unto the world, and he's the final traveler, and all the future depends on him. And that's good storytelling. But here's the question, can we observe ourselves with that same gravitas? Like, what you're doing is that huge that a couple decades from now, and even when you're gone, right, that the effects are far reaching. Are you playing that big of a game now? Or are you the rat looking for cheese, like he was in the beginning of the book? Scraping. What do you guys think? Can you affect major change, improvement, increase in your world? Can you do that, Missy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. I have no doubt. It's just a struggle sometimes to be in the appearances to the contrary, So that's why they must be ignored, regardless of any appearances to the contrary, is the phrase.
I'm glad you said what you just said, John, because this last chapter bothered me. All right. It bothered me. It reminded me of It's a Wonderful Life. Okay. Now, David Ponder and George Bailey are a lot alike. Okay. David was a person who was putting his own dreams on hold for the most part. And he stayed with the company. He was loyal. He exhibited all kinds of virtues, and he was getting paid back nothing for it. In fact, life was handing him a sour cream sandwich. Okay, that was what, and George Bailey had grandiose dreams. He was going to be an engineer. He was going to build great bridges and buildings all over the world, and he was stuck with the building alone in Bedford Falls. It never went anywhere. And then, of course, he was granted the vision of the world without George Bailey. And he saw, in his own small way, he was making a difference. Okay, David Ponder was given pretty much the photographic negative or mirror image of it. Okay, here's what the world will be like with you in it. And remember, David Ponder and George Bailey were contemplating exactly the same thing at the beginning of their stories. They figured they were worth more dead than alive. All right, they were going to extricate themselves out of their problems by doing away with themselves. Now, the problem that I had was I was reading the final chapter is, okay, you put these 7 principles into action, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a tower named after you. You're going to have a street named after you. Your daughter's going to have zoological gardens named after her, and your wife is going to have a medical institute named after her. All these great things are going to accrue to your name, and you will be hailed for posterity. If only you'll do these 7 things.
It's an inspiring story to inspire you.
Well, the whole point is and that's why I said I wanted to thank John, because he just disabused me of that notion that, okay, maybe you won't be immortalized, okay, in granite and stone, okay? But if you don't do this, there's no way you ever will be immortalized in granite or stone or any other way for that matter. So I suppose what Longfellow said in his Psalm of Life, which is one of my father's favorite poems, lives of all great men remind us we can make our lives sublime, and so doing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time.
Mm-hmm.
That Longfellow could sure put words together.
Well, not everyone will see them, but many will. And they're felt even if they're not seen, because it's an energy and it can't be destroyed. When you do good, it lives on after you, whether anyone acknowledges it. You must acknowledge it, and God will.
Not a bad
and
audience.
John.
Let me ask you this, Bob. Is it in your assessment egotistical to have a building named after you, or is there any like sort of counter intention on that? Like, it's not for me to see glory or like any of that kind of stuff?
No, not at all. It's just that I was reading this last chapter from the standpoint, okay, you put these 7 principles into motion in your life, and this is what's going to happen. Okay. And that's what really bothered me, was that now that you have, as I said, disabused me of that notion, I have a better appreciation and understanding for the way that the story ended. However, I think that, if what is actually the final chapter was, or just left out this chapter 10, I think it was, with the whole vision of the future, but he has a renewed sense of responsibility and a renewed sense that he's seen, he's got a different perspective of life, and he's going to make these things happen. Okay, this quantum leap from here he is, as it turns out, he's in a hospital bed, and he was miraculously preserved from death. All right, and he sees, here's the future, here's what's going to happen. Is it really necessary? Other than the fact that we get this whole embellishment on General Chamberlain. Chamberlain becomes much more of an essential, central character, because he does say, Chamberlain was honored. He was honored with, receiving Lee's sword at Appomattox. And he later became the president of Bowdoin College. And he later served as governor of Maine 3 terms. So that part of the book I was, very much impressed by, finding out more about who was essentially the non-famous person. Pounder actually asked him, "Are you famous?
Yeah,
Why have I never heard of you?"
Right.
Harry Truman I've heard of, Solomon I've heard of. Okay, I've never heard of you. Who the heck are you? Why am I talking to you of all people?
Right.
And then, at the end, you can see he's done his homework. He's been inspired by Chamberlain. In fact, the one artifact that he really has, that he treasures, is the tobacco pouch.
Right.
So
yeah.
Anyway, even if he hadn't, risen to the heights of fame and glory, but just wakes up with a renewed sense of purpose, saying, I can make my life work. Let's get back to it.
Yeah.
That would have been a great ending too.
Sure. Yeah, good stuff. And of course, in the end, he's back, and his circumstances are what they were at the beginning of the book, but he's got a completely different outlook. Very, very wonderful life kind of a ending, Who else? Who else had some thoughts to share on how this book ended? Anybody else? All right. Well,
it was.
I was just going to say, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying this was so good. This whole book, I love it. It's really, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's your neighbor.
I know, right? When you said he's from LA, Lower Alabama, I was like, I know exactly where he is. It's true. They do say that. But yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Good. Mickey?
I was just going to say that success can be defined in so many different ways. And so for this book, and understanding that it is a fictional writing, success can be defined financially. That's definitely, I think, something that, everyone has to pay the bills. And some people have a little, more of a financial dream than others have. And then there's success, spiritually, am I fulfilling the mission that I'm called to do? And just being successful, as a family, as a family person, right? Him as a family man, is he being successful at that? So the end chapter, I had to, when I was thinking about, the big business and the, all the stuff, I thought, well, I don't know exactly what my financial success is going to look like. I don't have a picture. He was fortunate enough to have a picture. We can't see into the future. I know what my goals are. So in my opinion, just looking at what success looks like for me, it renewed my purpose. Like you said, Bob, it renewed my purpose to continue to drive forward into what my definition of that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what the author is telling you to do is to get clear on that vision, right? So you don't have to be, in the dream world as David Ponder to get a really clear visual of your future. Go ahead and do it, right? Go have that vision. And because if we're vague, you get to be vague. So I want to get unvague. And Ponder had that opportunity. And so I think there's probably the if there was an eighth decision, I would say let it be that, right? You know where you're going.
Yeah.
Yes, Missy, the book should be a movie. So I remember hearing, because Andy is a bit of a comedian himself. He's a funny guy when you hear him talk. And he was telling us, it was like we had like 500 people at this event, and he was like, so I do want you to know, a lot of people were asking about, what we're doing now. The book is published and everything, and I'll have you know, I just signed a deal with HBO. And the crowd went nuts. Oh my goodness, HBO, right? It's like, yeah, it's a great deal. I pay like $30 and I get to watch all these movies, and it's really great. And so obviously there was no like movie deal with HBO. His deal with HBO was he subscribed. So
that's a shame, because it's written as a movie, but if he can't come through, maybe he'll interview. Maybe you could interview him for a little bit and play that for us.
Right.
You're doing a podcast, right? Soon.
Yeah. I've been in production for the last few days between traveling and stuff, on some writing for a new funnel. Anyway, we're off topic now with the book, but yeah, I'm playing a bigger game. So thank you for that, Missy. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for going on the traveler's journey with us. We're going to go ahead and move into some good standard personal development with our buddy Bob, the late Bob Proctor. I think it's appropriate that we'll be digging into this book next. I'm going to ask you to read the foreword and introduction and the first 2 chapters before we get together next week. So that's going to be about a quarter of the book. We're going to knock the book out in a month. So everything up through chapter 2. And once again, I did give you all a link that you could just download it directly from the Proctor Gallagher Institute. All right, good times. Well, that's it for the Traveler's Gift. Thank you guys for being here. And of course, I will look forward to seeing you all next week. And if I can assist anybody with anything in the meantime, please feel free to reach out. I know we've got pretty much, in fact, everyone who's here with us right now, we're kind of on a mission together, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Well, let's go fulfill that mission.
Let's do it.
We got one more day in the month, so let's go knock it out.